Have you ever looked into the eyes of a woman and seen something quietly breaking beneath the surface? Something unspoken, something ancient? Like a storm behind calm eyes, a scream trapped in the throat, a fire smoldering beneath soft skin. She smiles, she laughs, she carries on, but her silence is not peace, it's armor. This is not about heartbreak. This is about inheritance, about wounds passed from mother to daughter, not through blood but through silence, sacrifice, and swallowed emotion. The kind of pain that doesn't cry out, it waits. It waits in the tightening of a chest, the clench of a jaw, the numbness that sets in when she's told to be strong one more time. This is the feminine wound. And most women don't even know they carry it. They think it's personal, that their sadness, their resentment, their rage, their numbness is just something they need to deal with. But it isn't just theirs. It's collective. It's archetypal. It's a shadow handed down across centuries. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And for women, that means facing not just their own pain but the weight of every silenced mother, every obedient daughter, every woman who learned to dim her light so the world wouldn't call her too much. This wound is not loud. It's polite. It holds the family together, stays quiet in the meeting, says, "I'm fine," when she's crumbling inside. The feminine wound doesn't scream, it bleeds in silence. And that silence is deafening. But here's the truth. What you carry is not weakness. It's history. It's legacy. And it's time to unearth it. Because the healing doesn't begin when you stop feeling. It begins when you finally give yourself permission to. This wound didn't start with you. It started long before you were born. It began the moment a woman was told her tears were a burden, her voice too loud, her needs too much, and she believed it. So she swallowed her truth and smiled, and the next generation watched and learned. The feminine wound is not always inflicted, it is absorbed. It seeps into the skin like ink on old parchment, slowly blurring the lines between who she really is and who she was told to be. Your grandmother, your mother, you. A lineage of women learning to survive by shrinking. The wound is subtle. It hides in expectations dressed up as love. Be nice. Don't speak out. Put others first. Sacrifice. The rules are always the same. Be useful. Be pleasing. Be silent. And so, little by little, a girl learns to disconnect from her rage, her pleasure, her body, her knowing. She becomes emotionally invisible even to herself, not because she's weak, but because the world taught her that being fully seen meant being unsafe. And that lesson was carved deep. Society didn't need to silence her, it simply taught her to silence herself. Through culture, through religion, through praise for being selfless. The wound disguises itself as duty, as kindness, as strength. But beneath it all is grief. Grief for the wildness that was never allowed to bloom, for the voice that never got to sing its truth. And yet, here you are, feeling it all. You don't just feel your own sadness, you carry hers too. All of hers, all of theirs. But let this truth set you free. If the wound is inherited, then so is the power to heal. You are not here to repeat the cycle, you are here to break it. You are the woman your lineage has been waiting for. Not to be perfect, but to be whole. There is a part of every woman that she doesn't show the world. A hidden room inside her chest where the rage sleeps, where the grief whispers, where the questions echo unanswered. Carl Jung called it the shadow, everything we deny, reject, suppress, and fear in ourselves, not because it is bad, but because we were told it was unacceptable. The feminine shadow is not weakness. It is power left unclaimed. It is the part of you that felt too much, wanted too much, knew too much, and so you buried it. Not out of choice, but out of necessity. What the world couldn't handle, you tucked away. You learned early that expressing yourself fully could cost you connection. So you did what women have done for centuries. You turned the pain inward. You blamed yourself. You carried shame that was never yours. You apologized for existing too loudly, for feeling too deeply, for needing it all. Unexpressed emotions don't disappear, they sink. They become fatigue, anxiety, chronic tension, numbness. They live in the body like ghosts, waiting to be heard. You smile while your stomach knots. You say, "I'm fine," while your chest burns. You care for everyone else while quietly abandoning yourself. The shadow doesn't want to hurt you, it wants to be integrated. It's not darkness, it's depth. It's the wild, unedited truth of who you are. Repressing it was a survival strategy. You did it to stay loved, to stay safe, to belong, but now you are not that little girl anymore. You are a woman, and the cost of suppression has become too high. Your wholeness is calling. The parts you've buried are not shameful, they are sacred, and until you meet them, you will never feel fully free. Healing begins not by destroying the shadow, but by holding its hand and saying, "I see you, you're allowed here." She was the good girl, the one who never caused trouble, who smiled when she was hurting, who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who cleaned up emotional messes that weren't hers, because somewhere along the way, she was told that love was something you earned by disappearing. Cultural conditioning didn't come with a warning label. It came with compliments. "She's so polite, so helpful, so mature for her age," but underneath that praise was a silent training: be less, need less, speak less, feel less. The obedient daughter becomes the self-sacrificing woman, and the price is her aliveness. She learns to swallow her anger because anger is ugly. She hides her sadness because crying makes others uncomfortable. She dulls her joy because shining too brightly invites judgment. Emotional suppression becomes second nature. She doesn't even realize she's doing it. She says yes when her body screams no. She stays when she wants to run. She gives when she's already empty. And the world applauds her for it. But the body remembers. The nervous system tightens, the gut churns, the throat closes. Her body becomes the container for every unspoken word, every unmet need, every buried scream. The good girl grows into a woman with chronic exhaustion and no idea why. Because it takes energy to be what you're not, to smile through pain, to manage everyone else's emotions while ignoring your own. We teach women to be emotionally tidy, to be pleasant, to keep it all together. But no one teaches them how to be whole. And wholeness is messy. It cries, it rages, it trembles. It questions everything. Emotional repression may have once kept her safe, but now it keeps her small, and something inside her is done. Done playing nice, done staying silent, done earning love by self-erasure. The truth is this: you don't owe anyone your silence. Your anger is not a flaw, it's a compass. Your feelings aren't a problem, they are a portal. And every time you choose to feel instead of suppress, you return a piece of yourself back home. Somewhere along the path of becoming acceptable, she left her body behind. Not physically, but energetically, emotionally, spiritually. There was a moment, maybe many, when her body spoke and no one listened. So she stopped listening too. That's how the split begins, the separation of mind and body, of instinct and logic, of knowing and obeying. Women are born deeply intuitive, deeply embodied, naturally in rhythm with life. But the feminine wound teaches them to override that wisdom, to doubt it, to fear it, to silence it. She begins to trust rules more than her gut, appearance more than sensation, approval more than truth. And the more she performs what the world wants from her, the more she drifts from what her body has been trying to say all along. The messages become symptoms: headaches, fatigue, tightness in the chest. The body starts whispering, then screaming, "Feel this, listen to me." But she's too busy surviving. Carl Jung believed the body contains the unconscious, that it carries the truths the mind cannot process. Trauma doesn't live in memory, it lives in muscle. Every repressed cry is lodged in the throat. Every betrayal stored in the belly. Every time she said yes but meant no, it's still in her bones. And that disconnection becomes her normal. Until one day, normal feels unbearable. She's tired of not knowing why she's so tired. Tired of living outside of herself. That's when the real healing begins. When she chooses to come back. Back to the body. Back to the breath. Back to the sacred, slow language of her own intuition. This return is not graceful, it is messy, raw, uncomfortable. But it's also holy, because the body is not a burden, it's a compass, and what she thought was numbness was really a boundary, a call home. When a woman begins to trust her body again, she doesn't just heal herself, she reclaims the map to everything she was taught to forget. There are emotions women are taught not to let alone express. Emotions that get labeled hysterical, dramatic, too much, anger, grief, longing, hunger. These are the emotions that don't wear makeup, that don't wait to be invited, that come raw, shaking, demanding to be seen. And so, many women send them underground. They swallow their rage with a forced smile. They hold their grief in until it turns to apathy. They silence their longing by staying busy, staying small, staying numb. Because feeling too much makes others uncomfortable. And for generations, women have been taught that their role is to be digestible. But here's the truth. Suppressed emotion doesn't die. It transforms. Into resentment, depression, disconnection, into a quiet sadness that follows her like a shadow she can't name, not because she's broken, but because her truth has no room to breathe. The world says anger is dangerous, but what's truly dangerous is a woman who never gets to feel it, because that anger is sacred. It's the fire of boundaries, the roar of no more, the rising of a soul that remembers she is not here to be silent. And grief? Grief is not weakness. It is the strength to finally let go of what never loved her back. It is the honoring of what was lost, and the clearing of space for something more true. These forbidden emotions are not flaws, they are medicine. When a woman allows herself to feel them fully, she doesn't fall apart, she falls back into herself. She becomes clear, honest, whole. And yes, it will hurt. Releasing what was never expressed always does. But in that pain there is power, because what was once hidden begins to breathe. And when a woman breathes through her rage instead of denying it, when she cries without apology, longs without shame, shouts without permission, she doesn't become less feminine, she becomes free. And freedom is the deepest truth her soul has been begging her to feel. She does it all. She holds the house, the job, the children, the calendar, the emotion. She smiles through deadlines, listens without interrupting, says yes when her whole body wants to say, please, not today. To the world she is strong, reliable, capable. She gets praised for how much she carries, never for how much it costs. But behind that competence is exhaustion, behind the smile is anxiety. And beneath the drive is a deep, unspoken ache. Will I ever be enough? The modern woman has become the overachiever, the perfectionist, the silent caregiver. She wears strength like armor, but inside, she is aching for softness, for someone to hold her the way she holds everyone else. This isn't strength, it's performance. A lifelong audition for worthiness in a world that rewards the masculine. Action, results, control. She's not allowed to fall apart, not allowed to rest. Rest is lazy. Emotions are weak. Needing help means failure. And so she builds a life on top of her wounds, hoping one more achievement, one more sacrifice, one more yes will finally make her feel whole. But instead, she burns out. Slowly, quietly. The anxiety she hides at night. The tears she doesn't explain. The ache in her back that won't go away. Her body keeps the score. She carries the burden of proving her value in a system that was never built to see her. But here's the truth she's been aching to hear. You don't need to earn your worth. You already are. Your value was never in how much you give or how strong you pretend to be. Real strength is not holding it all together, it's letting yourself unravel. It's daring to say, I'm tired, I can't. It's shedding the mask of invincibility and coming home to the truth that your softness is not weakness, it is sacred. And the world doesn't need you to be perfect, it needs you to be real. Carl Jung believed that within every person lives a mirror, a hidden energy that completes us. He called it the anima in men, the animus in women. But for women, the journey isn't about discovering the feminine. It's about remembering it, reclaiming it. coming back to what was always there but never allowed to breathe. The feminine energy isn't loud. It doesn't push, force, or chase. It waits. It feels. It listens. It speaks through intuition, through the body, through dreams and symbols, and it's this energy, the true feminine, that has been silenced for centuries. Women have been taught to live from the mind, not the heart, to analyze, not to feel, to achieve, not to receive. The inner feminine, the anima, became a stranger in her own home, but she never left. She simply went quiet, waiting for permission to return. And now, you're starting to hear her again. In the quiet moments, in the longing for softness, in the ache for something deeper than doing, the healing feminine is not weak. She is the storm and the stillness, the healer and the wild woman. She cries and creates. She surrenders and sees. Reclaiming her is not easy. It will require you to feel the grief of abandoning yourself. It will ask you to stop running and start listening. It will break everything you built on survival and begin something rooted in soul. Jung knew this. The feminine is the doorway to the unconscious, to the mystery, to wholeness. And when you begin to live from that place, from softness, intuition, emotion, you don't become less powerful. You become magnetic. You become medicine. The world taught you to fear her. But she is not chaos. She is the rhythm you were born to move in. And once you trust her, once you embody her, you will never abandon yourself again. What the conscious mind buries, the unconscious remembers, and it speaks, not in words, but in images, in symbols, in dreams. Carl Jung saw dreams not as random fragments of thought, but as sacred portals, windows into the soul's forgotten language. The place where the shadow reveals itself not to shame you, but to awaken you. Every woman holds unspoken pain, and that pain doesn't vanish, it transforms into recurring dreams, into emotional patterns, into symbolic echoes that whisper, "Look here, feel this." Maybe you've had a dream you can't shake. Maybe the same themes circle you: abandonment, betrayal, unworthiness, like ghosts replaying the same old story. That is not coincidence. That is communication. The unconscious doesn't want to punish you, it wants to liberate you. When you see yourself running in a dream but getting nowhere, ask yourself, what am I running from in waking life? When you dream of houses with locked rooms, ask, what part of me have I closed off? The feminine wound hides in metaphors. It cloaks itself in archetypes: the lost girl, the silent mother, the angry woman. Your soul speaks in poetry when prose can no longer hold the truth. And when you begin to pay attention, you start to see that nothing is random. The breakup, the illness, the breakdown, they're all symbolic invitations. Your psyche is always trying to complete the circle. Healing is not just talk, it's integration. To decode your emotional pain is to become your own translator, to sit with what arises instead of running from it. And when a woman starts to witness her life like a dream, when she leans into her symbols, her patterns, her shadows, she stops reacting blindly. She begins responding with wisdom. This is not woo-woo. This is soul work. This is inner alchemy. And you don't need to understand it all to begin. You just need to start listening. The answers aren't outside you. They've been whispering all along, waiting for you to see what the pain has been trying to teach. Somewhere inside you is a little girl, not the one in old photographs, but the one who still lives in your nervous system. The one who was told, don't cry, be nice, you're too sensitive. The one who learned that love came with conditions and safety meant self-abandonment. She still remembers. She remembers every time her feelings were dismissed, every time her boundaries were ignored, every time her needs were too big for the room. And now, as a woman, you carry her unmet needs like quiet baggage. That's why you overextend, why you flinch at conflict, why you crave love yet fear being seen. It's not because you're broken, it's because she's still waiting for someone to show up for her. This is the work of reparenting, of becoming the mother, the protector, the safe space she never had. Not by blaming the past, but by giving her now what she was denied then: validation, softness, permission to feel. Start small, sit with her in silence, write her a letter. Ask her, What do you need from me today? And then, listen. She may want to cry, or play, or rest. She may want to rage. Let her. Because healing doesn't happen by logic. It happens by love. Real, unconditional love. The kind you were always worthy of. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your inner child is the unconscious. She is the living memory of how you learned to love, to fear, to disappear. But she is not here to haunt you, she is here to guide you. And the moment you stop punishing her for her needs, when you stop dismissing her voice the way others once did, that's the moment you begin to come home. Because the woman you are becoming cannot be built on the abandonment of the girl you once were. She needs you, she always has. And now, finally, you're ready to answer her call. For so long, her body was a battlefield, a place of judgment, control, and shame. Not because it was flawed, but because she was taught to fear its power, to silence its voice, to disconnect. The body became something to manage, to criticize, to hide, not something to inhabit. But the truth is, the body was never the enemy. It was the witness, the vessel, the archive. It remembered everything her mind couldn't hold. Every time she felt unsafe, it tensed. Every time she was ignored, it went numb. Every time she betrayed herself to belong, it stored the pain quietly, patiently waiting. And now, it's calling her home. This is the sacred return, not to an ideal image, but to a felt presence. Reclaiming the body doesn't mean making it perfect. It means making peace. It means touching your own skin with reverence instead of judgment. It means breathing not to calm down, but to come back. Breathwork, movement, sensuality. These are not indulgences, they are medicine. They remind you that you are not just a head with thoughts, but a soul with form, a body that longs to be listened to. When you move your hips slowly, when you let your breath deepen, when you feel your feet on the ground, you're not just dancing, you're remembering, reclaiming, reuniting with the most sacred home you've ever had, your body. Carl Jung taught that wholeness cannot be achieved by thinking alone, it requires embodiment. And as you return to the rhythm of your own heartbeat, you begin to hear the wisdom that was always there. Rest now. Speak up. Touch me gently. The body doesn't lie. It doesn't shame. It only signals what your soul already knows. And when a woman finally stops punishing her body and starts partnering with it, she doesn't just heal, she becomes whole. There comes a moment in every healing journey when words are no longer enough, when you can't think your way out of pain, when your body becomes heavy with uncried tears, unspoken truths, unfelt rage. That's when the release comes. Not as a performance, but as a wave, unexpected, raw, holy. Maybe it happens in the middle of a breathwork session, your chest heaving, eyes wide, suddenly sobbing for reasons you don't fully understand. Maybe it's when you're dancing alone, and your hips start moving like they remember something you forgot. Or maybe it's in the dark, one night, when the scream finally escapes your throat and you feel something inside you crack, but it doesn't break, it opens. This is emotional release. It is not dramatic. It is not messy. It is sacred. It is the moment you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Rage that belonged to your mother, grief that belonged to a younger you, shame that was planted in you by a world that never knew how to love a woman fully in her truth. You let it out. You write the letter you'll never send. You cry until you can't cry anymore. You hit the pillow. You burn the journal. You exhale. And something shifts. Because healing is not about fixing, it's about feeling. Carl Jung said that only what is brought to consciousness can be transformed. And sometimes, consciousness lives in the scream, in the shaking, in the tears that say, "I'm still here." Women were taught to suppress, to manage, to endure. But endurance is not liberation. Liberation lives in expression, in permission, in movement, in truth. And the moment you allow yourself to feel without censorship, without apology, without fear, you begin to breathe again. Not just through your lungs, but through your life. What once weighed you down begins to move through you like wind, like water, like fire. And you realize, perhaps for the first time, Your emotions are not the problem. They are the way out. There comes a point when the woman who once whispered her needs now speaks them without shame. She no longer waits for permission to feel. She doesn't ask, "Is it okay if I'm upset?" or "Am I allowed to be hurt?" She already knows she is. She has reclaimed what was always hers, emotional sovereignty. This is the moment the shift happens, when she realizes that her emotions were never the enemy. They were messages, warnings, guides. Her anger wasn't a flaw, it was a boundary being crossed. Her sadness wasn't weakness, it was love unexpressed. Her joy wasn't frivolous, it was her soul lighting the path. And now, she listens, she feels, she honors. She no longer abandons herself for the comfort of others. She doesn't shrink in fear of being too much. She expands. Emotion becomes her compass. Not something to be managed, but something to be mastered. Not controlled, but trusted. She says no when it costs her too much. She says yes only when it's in full alignment. She sets boundaries, not to push others away, but to protect the sacred within her. She no longer needs to explain why. No is enough. I don't feel safe is enough. I matter is enough. Carl Jung wrote that he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens. She has looked inward long enough to wake up, and now that she sees herself clearly, she no longer asks to be seen. She knows. And when a woman knows herself, she is no longer ruled by emotional storms, she sails them. Emotion doesn't drown her, it carries her. She is the storm and the calm, the wave and the shore. And she will never again apologize for the depth of her feeling. Because her emotions are not chaos, they are her truth. And her truth is sacred. When one woman heals, it doesn't end with her. Healing is never singular. It echoes, it ripples, it rewrites. Every time she says, "No more," she breaks a chain her mother couldn't. Every time she chooses rest over martyrdom, she teaches her daughter that she is worthy of ease. Every time she lets herself feel without shame, generations of silenced women breathe a little easier. Her healing becomes their liberation. Because the feminine wound is not personal, it is ancestral. It is collective. It runs through bloodlines, through cultures, through stories never spoken, but always felt. And when one woman chooses to rise to face the pain, to scream, to sob, to remember who she is, she doesn't just heal herself. She becomes a mirror, a catalyst, a spark. Other women feel it. They might not understand it, but they sense it. If she can, maybe I can too. That is the power of the feminine, as a force just soft, not just nurturing, but revolutionary. A woman in her power doesn't dominate. She activates. She doesn't lead by force. She leads by embodiment. And as more women choose wholeness over approval, expression over repression, sovereignty over sacrifice, new pattern begins. The old story of suffering and silence no longer fits, it dissolves. And in its place, something ancient and new emerges. Feminine energy that is deeply felt, deeply trusted, and deeply free. Jung believed that what is not integrated becomes fate. But integration heals not just the self, it heals the field. Your healing is not selfish, it is sacred. And when you commit to it fully, you don't just change your life. You change the lives of those who will never know your name, but will feel the shift you made possible. This is the collective return, one woman at a time, together. This wound you carry, it is not your fault, but it is your invitation. An opening, a doorway, a call back to everything you were told to forget. The feminine wound is not a life sentence. It is a sacred map, and every tear, every ache, every moment you thought you were broken was actually pointing you home, back to your feeling, back to your softness, back to your soul. For too long, you were taught that to be enough, you had to be smaller, quieter, more agreeable, less emotional, that your sensitivity was a problem, that your depth was dangerous. But now you see the truth. You were never too much. You were just too deep for a shallow world. And that depth? It is your power. It is your wisdom. It is the sacred place where healing begins. Reconnection to emotion is not regression. it is revolution. Because in a world that numbs, distracts, and denies choosing to feel is an act of courage. Choosing to cry is rebellion. Choosing to listen to your body, to name your needs, to love your whole self, this is the uprising they never saw coming. Wholeness is not perfection. It is not about fixing yourself. It is about remembering that nothing in you ever needed to be erased. Your pain has a purpose. Your story has a soul. And the woman you are becoming, she is not new, she is remembered, felt, reclaimed. This journey was never about becoming someone else. It was about shedding everything you were never meant to carry. And now you are here, with your feet on the ground, your heart open, your voice steady, your spirit intact. So this is your invitation, your final call. Choose to feel, choose to heal, choose to return home to yourself. And when you do, you won't just change your life, you'll change everything around you. Because a whole woman doesn't just rise, she radiates. And that radiance? It will light the way for all those still searching for the pieces of themselves. You are not too much, you are just in bloom, and the world has been waiting for your return. This story was intense. But this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.